Gumball is finally back once again with the Wonderfully Rewarded Gumball Season 2, or as some may still call it, the Amazing World of Gumball Season 8. But I gotta say, this season really stepped up its game in comparison to Season 1, in terms of animation, humor, and the episode's plots themselves, being generally just way more interesting, well, at least for the most part. Of course, this season, as every Gumball season does, has 1 to 2 misses, or just kind of episodes that to me personally aren't the best, but even so, it still has some episodes that I also see as some of the best Gumball episodes ever, and that's including the original series as well. And so with that said, in this video, I'll be ranking every single episode of the season, so please consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel. And with that said, now let's begin. The Summoning. The episode begins with Gumball looking through Darwin's yearbook, and as Gumball sees a picture of someone he's clearly attracted to, he asks who it is, and Darwin says it's Miss Simeon, and Gumball's soul just leaves his body, and then Darwin just dunks it back into him. But Darwin then goes to try to become a photographer for the school, but then gets drawn in by the Witch Coven, which members consist of Claire, Terry, and Masami, who then invite Darwin over to Claire's house, and they then all reveal that they're witches, but Darwin of course doesn't care. His girlfriend is literally a ghost from the underworld, but Darwin then pulls out a broom, and they all just say that's offensive. I guess acting like a fictional witch to them is like witch racism to them, but they then all offer a piece of themselves to this chalice to, I guess, make Darwin a witch, or just generally for them all to get powers. And Darwin just throws up a fucking parasite that I guess was just in him. But Darwin then gives some of his fish scales, and then they drink from the chalice and then just start dancing before they go back to Claire's house to try to give Darwin a good outfit, eventually deciding on this like goth schoolgirl fit, which Darwin absolutely slays in. And as they're walking through the school hallway, Gumball comes up to him and says that he's proud of him for his new look, but then the magic just like infects him and he starts throwing up frogs. But eventually Masami actually starts to go crazy with power, and as Darwin asks what her deal is, we see that she's so angry because in the yearbook last year she had a picture of herself wearing braces, which yeah, she just looks absolutely chopped. But Darwin then just puts on a serious anime face, saying that they can fix Masami, as we then see her just storming through the hallway, as she then puts these yearbook labels on a bunch of other people, making Tobias the least likely to run for president, making Jamie the most likely to never leave Elmore, and then making it so Gumball will never amount to anything, as then just nothing changes, which was hilarious. But Darwin and the other witches then do a spell in the yearbook and tell Masami to look, as Darwin turns the ugly picture of her into an actual just cute picture, saying that Masami always looks amazing, that it just took an amazing photographer to capture it, as she then starts crying and turns back into her normal self. This is why I love Darwin, man. He's actually just such a good guy. But Masami then destroys the yearbook, thus setting everything back to normal. Gumball, of course, once again having absolutely nothing change about him. And then Darwin says that he's gonna stop partaking in clubs for a while, but then 3 vampires come in, who I'm pretty sure are all a reference to different vampires from different series. But the red hair one is obviously Mavis from Hotel Transylvania, the first of many references to be made in this season. And as they ask him to join Drama Club, Darwin instantly says yes, but Gumball then comes in dressed like them and just starts saying he can sub in for Darwin before the episode ends. This was a good first episode to come back to the series. I think that the Unfollow, the second episode, would have been a better first episode pick, but this episode is still good nonetheless. It's definitely not one of the best of the season, but it's still for sure good. Seeing Darwin kind of go off on his own from Gumball and just have another one of his own adventures, just interact with and become friends with a whole different group that he's never really been a part of, and then become nonetheless witches with. It was very random, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. And so with that said, The Summoning is going in B tier. Season 2, Episode 2, The Unfollow. Gumball and Darwin are chilling on their couch discussing the Lil Twang franchise before they notice that their #1 fan and the scariest and worst character in the show, Sarah, has stopped following them. And this just absolutely crushes them, as they need all of the attention they can get. But when they confront Sarah about it, she says that now she stands someone named Sagi-kun, who she then reveals is of course a furry. But in order to win Sarah back, Gumball and Darwin raise their production value, as they then both just become these overly animated 1960s cartoon style whose movements are actually just so cool and so well done. This scene is actually animated by James Baxter, who is basically known as one of, if not the best animator in the business, so yeah, that tracks. But anyways, they then decide to do something to apparently reflect her, or I guess the audience's true interests and values, as we then see Gumball and Darwin turn into fucking skibbity toilet. I genuinely did not expect this, but honestly, outdated memes being in Gumball just always makes sense. But as Darwin asks Gumball what they should try next, Gumball says everything, and so they try to add more cliffhangers by just pump faking running over Sarah with a bus, making a gender swap reboot with a multiversal timeline, which I'm pretty sure was referring to Fiona and Cake. Also, I just want to call out that in this crowd of multiversal Gumball and Darwins, we actually see Chi-Chi from the Copycats. I don't know how this guy is still alive.
You guys good?
They then try to add more drama as we see everyone just breaking up and proposing to each other, and Darwin then just randomly says that his biological father wants to take him back as he puts a blobfish in front of her, which was pretty funny. They then add more explosions and the town just explodes, but despite all of it, she still won't take them back, and so they threaten to kill Sagi-kun, but then it's revealed that he's not real at all and of course is AI generated. Gumball had to make a joke about it at some point, but Sarah then basically becomes her creepy self again and chases them all the way back to their house before Gumball and Darwin just accept that they had to deal with her. But as Sarah then just starts asking them boring questions, Darwin just literally starts seizing up. I don't know why, but this was one of the funniest moments in the whole episode. But they then post a photo and she comments instantly, but of course they go right back to ignoring her as we see her creepily watching them through the window. Sarah is actually just something else. Gumball and Darwin truly carried this episode on their backs. If it wasn't for them being so good in this episode, and if the animation wasn't as good as it was, this would probably be a lower tier, but yeah, it delivered on both of those fronts to the absolute maximum, so it's gonna be an A tier. Season 2, Episode 3, The Promposal. Carrie asked Darwin out to prom in a way that Gumball doesn't think is hardcore enough, and because of this, Penny doesn't know just how to ask him in fear of being rejected, as her way of asking him out was originally through the means of this cute but very low effort poem. And so in an attempt to ask him during lunch, she puts on this weird realistic bag, as we then see her just become live action as well. But Gumball, seeing this, more or less completely shits on it, not knowing that it's her. And Tobias then comes in and tries to ask her, but then quickly gets pushed aside, which was pretty funny. And then the rest of the episode follows Darwin trying to help Penny, in which he actually surprisingly suggests for her to not ask Gumball to the prom at all, saying that it'll only lead to someone getting hurt. But hearing this, Penny does the ultimate promposal by getting tackled by footballers, ran over by ambulances, electrocuted, and seemingly killed, fully faking her death and making poor Gumball cry his eyes out just before revealing that she's alive. It really makes you realize just how meant for each other Gumball and Penny really are. But Penny then takes the joke one step too far by then asking Tobias to prom in front of him, which then just literally kills him, as we then end the episode with them explaining everything that just occurred to Gumball, who is now in a hospital bed. This episode was a fun one. My only wish was that we actually got to see the prom after all of the effort spent on Penny trying to ask Gumball in a way that he would be happy with. But nonetheless, this episode is going in C tier, as there's just better episodes in the season. Season 2, Episode 4, The Trumpet. In fear of Gumball amounting to nothing when he's older, or actually just ending up like a worse version of Richard, Nicole buys Gumball a trumpet in hope of him changing his ways and having a better future. And of course, when Gumball plays the trumpet, he is absolutely terrible, but fully believes that he's just a musical genius instantly and takes this to the absolute farthest level that he can. Eventually, Darwin and Anais of course become fed up with it and tell him that he isn't a musical genius, but Gumball just says that they're jealous and that he's now the favorite child. And so then the next day, Anais and Darwin instantly have just become exactly how Gumball was in the beginning of the episode, as we then see Gumball as just this rich British lad with a wife, just showing that if Darwin and Anais aren't given the same amount of attention as Gumball, they'll end up being the ones with no future, just kind of showing the overall importance of treating your kids equally. But Gumball then plays at their school before finally quitting and going back to being his normal self, as Nicole then says that she's living with Anais and Darwin when she's older, as we then see her now also become how Gumball is in the future, which was pretty funny, but really makes sense if that's how things do turn up. I like the overall message of this episode, and it's pretty funny. I also have to give this episode a C tier, as once again, there's just better episodes in the season. Season 2, Episode 5, The Synthesis. It's career day at Elmore Junior High, and Nicole comes and absolutely embarrasses Anais with a really cringy rap. And then Gumball and Darwin also tell Nicole that they avoid her in school, calling themselves shinobis as Darwin uses a jutsu, and Gumball just can't, so he just Naruto runs away, which was pretty funny. But hearing this, Nicole goes to cry in the bathroom, but we then see that Yuki is actually dealing with the same thing as her, trying to be cool but just embarrassing Masami in doing so. And because of this, of course, they instantly start trying to one-up one another, bringing back the anime style once again. But eventually they realize since they're in the same boat, they need to work together to show their kids just how cool or just how much power they have. As we then get even more Nicole and Yuki childhood lore, learning that they learned more or less an ultimate team-up power called the Synthesis, which they then do and literally fuse. I love the amount of Dragon Ball references in this episode, and they continue to do them as Masami and Anais fuse as well. Gumball and Darwin, of course, attempt to do so, but fail sadly. Nonetheless, we then get this just actually awesome Dragon Ball style fight between them in the sky and space, before Nicole and Yuki blast their kids with a spirit bomb. But Anais and Masami basically tell them that they're not acting like their mothers, but like theirs. As we get yet another flashback of the two, of course, having the same childhood, both scolded by their parents for everything and forced to be the best at everything. And this causes Nicole and Yuki to come to their senses and save their daughters from quite literally falling to their deaths, as they then all share a pretty wholesome moment together. But they then all fuse together as Miss Simeon shows up, but of course Miss Simeon just absolutely destroys them, as she's been alive for like a billion years. Gumball and Darwin then also try to fuse once again, but just get stuck inside of each other's heads, which was pretty expected, honestly. But I really wish we did get to see them fuse. But this episode wasn't really about them though, and was way more about the mother and daughter's relationship, so having them be sidelined but still somewhat be involved with jokes like this honestly works. Nonetheless, this is easily one of my favorite episodes from this season, and honestly of all of Gumball in general. So of course, with that said, the Synthesis is going in S tier. Season 2, Episode 6, The Cheapmas. This episode is actually just so perfect to have released and to watch during the holiday season, but also is just a really good episode of Gumball in general, and is also honestly, in my opinion at least, easily better than the first Christmas special they did in the original series. The episode begins with Gumball and Darwin dressed up in Christmas sweaters, looking festive and adorable, but the boys then go into Nicole's room thinking that she had decorated her room, but in reality she is just working her ass off. But they then head into town, Darwin even saying happy holidays to Penny's dad, but then just getting coffee dumped on him and Gumball for it, which was actually just so sad. And it gets even sadder as they then realize quickly that all of the adults of Elmore are mad busy with work and not really focused on celebrating Christmas whatsoever. As we even see Yuki on call with Masami saying she won't even be home for Christmas as she'll be busy working. But Richard then says that he's pretending to be Nicole so she can work 2 jobs just so she can get them the stuff that they want for Christmas, making it seem like the spirit of Christmas is still at least somewhat alive. But then as Gumball and Darwin go to look at the Christmas tree in the mall, the construction workers are already taking it down. And as Gumball asks one of them what he's doing, he just straight up says that Christmas is canceled this year as everything is too expensive. And then as the two deflate because of this sad news, he blows them back up and then charges them $50 for it, saying that's inflation. And Darwin then of course says that Christmas isn't just about cheap material goods, and from here on in the episode, the two decide that they're gonna attempt to save Christmas or bring back the Christmas spirit and show that it truly isn't just about gifts, which is such a good wholesome message that of course plenty of movies have focused on, but having it be a lesson that Gumball and Darwin try to teach the adults of Elmore adds such a fun spin to it. I also just love when the show touches on real life deep topics, and this is one honestly perfect for them to cover. They kind of touch on the topic of inflation with the prices of fast food and healthy foods in the burger, but bringing it back up in this way honestly also I feel helps with the continuity of the show, but also just continues to make Elmore and its citizens feel way more relatable and realistic. But nonetheless, Gumball and Darwin then visit the Awesome Store, but of course everything he has to sell is overpriced as well, and so they decide to just jack his whole whip, as we then get a montage of them driving through town using different items from the Awesome Store, but of course instead of bringing back Christmas, it just kind of makes things worse. But as the kid then comes up to them saying that there's not much joy left in his life due to his illness, and that the holidays are the only thing that brings any light to the dark reality of his life, they just start crying and send him flying, which was actually hilarious. But Gumball then continues to cry, saying that he doesn't know what to do, thinking that Santa wasn't coming. But Darwin then says this. And so they then go into people's houses delivering presents, which of course eventually leads them to being chased by the cops. And so they start throwing things from the Awesome Store at him, which transforms his car into a bunch of different things, as well as my goat, Jake the dog from Adventure Time. It was so cool to see a cameo of him here, especially after the sincere lack of Jake content as of late, with him basically not appearing whatsoever in Fiona and Cake Season 2. But anyways, Darwin then throws a snow globe at the ground, which then causes snow to instantly appear everywhere, but it then causes the van to spin out, and as they're surrounded by the police and Gumball and Darwin get handcuffed, Sarah actually comes up to them and says that they were just trying to save the holidays, which then also inspires Hector and the Awesome Store driver to speak up as well. And of course, as he says that he works 24/7 just to break even, all of the adults of course look over as they're all going through the same thing, but everyone then actually gives the Awesome Store driver all of the items they got from him back, which makes him start crying, which of course makes everyone, and mainly all of the adults here, finally realize the true meaning of Christmas. It's about the spirit of Christmas itself. Snow, the overall vibes, the joy on people's faces, giving instead of receiving, and being happy with whatever you get and not expecting your parents to get you something expensive, and that they don't have to work so much to get you that crazy present. You should truly be happy with whatever. A valuable lesson for the town of Elmore finally learned, but then of course Santa comes in and tries to teach them the exact lesson we just spent the entire episode covering, and so Gumball literally just tells him that to his face, and then he just gives up and says,
okay, anyone want a picture with me for $10?
I feel like this is kind of calling out to the people that dress up as Santa for money. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it works in the context of this episode as a pretty good joke. Once again, I love this episode, and it's honestly one of my favorites of the new season, and honestly maybe of all of Gumball. And so with that said, the Cheapmas is going in S tier. Season 2, episode 7, The Score. Gumball and Darwin accidentally make Ocho so mad that he blows up the bus, and so they decide that they're gonna help him learn how to deal with his anger. They try getting him to let out all of his anger through a bunch of different means, but as nothing works, Ocho ends up opening up to them, saying that they don't get what his life is like, and that his life is like a video game, in which we see is quite literally an actual video game that Gumball, Darwin, and Ocho play, revealing that Ocho actually has just an insane backstory in which enemies attacked the king or his father and chased him off to never be seen again, resulting in the queen, his mother, to escape with him to Earth. And through the game itself being extremely difficult, we get even more details about Ocho's life, seeing his struggles and responsibilities that he shouldn't have to have yet being a kid, all because of his mom working and his dad just not being around. But as the game or his life is always seemingly going to be difficult no matter what, Gumball and Darwin say that they'll help Ocho have fun with it instead of trying to beat it, in which results in them actually defeating a level and Ocho finally being happy, ending the episode with Gumball and Darwin now understanding Ocho and even calling him a friend, which was really wholesome. But Gumball and Darwin then of course realizing just how unfair life is after they leave, just start shooting electricity out of their ass, which was pretty funny. Using video games as a metaphor to tell Ocho's traumatic story and create a bond with Gumball and Darwin, in doing so was just so good. I absolutely love the writing of this episode and the visuals as well, so with that said, the score is going in A tier. Season 2, episode 8, The Diary. Gumball and Darwin find a diary in which they believe to be Claire's, where she reveals that her best friend Wilson told her that he loves her, but Claire straight up friendzones him, and from then on Wilson and her basically quit talking as Wilson completely avoids her. Claire felt bad, but also had a boyfriend already, so didn't really know what to do about it, and then sees Wilson helping Anton. She quickly realizes the mistake she made by not being with them, and more or less just instantly falls in love with them. And so she confronts Wilson, but he then says that he's leaving, but will wait for her at the bus stop if she changes her mind. But then as the diary ends, Gumball and Darwin look out the window where they see Wilson and not Claire. But as Darwin asks where Claire is, Claire then reveals that the diary is not hers, and we then find out that the diary is actually none other than Leslie's. And hearing this, Gumball and Darwin just explode and are transported to the room of a god of over-the-top reactions who offers them the key to all universal knowledge, and they of course just do not care whatsoever, which was pretty funny. But Darwin then reveals to Wilson that Leslie wants him, and as Wilson confronts Leslie in the bathroom, we just hear the two hugging and kissing whilst Gumball and Darwin are just so happy. This episode was alright. It didn't focus on the most interesting characters, so that kind of automatically makes it worse than the others, I guess. But that isn't to say it's necessarily a bad episode either. I'm pretty sure this is the first bit of LGBTQ representation ever in the show, so that's nice to see at least. But nonetheless, this episode is going in C tier. Season 2, episode 9, The Punishment. After Nicole doesn't get Gumball to school in time, the two start to blame one another for whose fault it is, as we then spend most of the episode with them just absolutely rage baiting each other, trying to cause each other to be the reason for Gumball to be late to school again. But when they do get to school, Felicity tells them as a mother, Gumball needs to be put in summer school, as well as that she encourages them to take the punishment as a mother. And Nicole then asks Gumball for the real reason that he's late to school, and Gumball actually says that it's the best time to spend time with Nicole, and that despite them fighting, he still has fun and enjoys being taught life lessons by her, or vice versa, which was actually just a surprisingly mature thing for Gumball to say, honestly. But anyways, the two then team up to now rage bait Felicity by just mocking and pranking her. Just seeing the two come together as absolute menaces, very similar to how they did in the Gourmet from season 1, which was just nice to see. Gumball and Nicole have quickly become one of my favorite duos in the show. So with that said, The Punishment is going in B tier. Season 2, episode 10, The Roast. Gumball gets on the stage at a school event and takes it to his advantage to roast the hell out of Alan, who is also on the stage. But it's then revealed that this event is actually for a charity, and Gumball is now being judged by everybody, making Gumball quickly realize what he just did was extremely messed up and makes him actually feel bad and embarrassed and low-key horrible for the things he just said. And so just like that, he now vows to only say nice things to people, but when he sees Tony's big self unable to open the door, he has to hold in his laughter, kind of showing just how hard being more nice really will be for Gumball, as we then see him just holding in his laughter, looking at everyone around, as everyone in the town is for the most part pretty stupid. But Gumball then tells Darwin that he roasts everyone because people need to be told when they're wrong, and that it's more or less out of love. And then Darwin sings a song about how people already know that they're not perfect, and so don't really need Gumball's disrespect on top of it. And hearing this, Gumball just rips his tongue out, which caught me so off guard at first. But anyways, he then buries it, and they go to look at the people he couldn't help but laugh at earlier. But now, instead of doing that, he just has nothing to really say at all. But Alan then comes in saying that his positive reinforcement on the kids at the charity event didn't work, as we see they actually just became menaces. And so Gumball tries to convince the kids to stop nicely, but obviously it doesn't work. And so Alan and Darwin tell Gumball to roast them, and Alan even says that he was wrong. And hearing this, Gumball goes to get the sharpest tongue he can, which just in this case, whilst being metaphorical, is also just real tongue weapons that he then uses to just beat up the children, which was insane yet hilarious. But the episode then ends with him now realizing that slight roasting is okay and sometimes needed, but also that he can't go as far as he did in the beginning of the episode, as well as of course now being once again on good terms with Alan. I honestly enjoyed this episode. Instead of Gumball and Darwin helping Alan see the positivity in the world like in the faith, Alan and Darwin help Gumball at least realize he has to be at least somewhat more positive, while still of course continuing to be the rage baiting, roasting Gumball when it's needed. And so with that said, The Roast is going in B tier. Season 2, episode 11, The Survivalists. Nicole and Anais leave Richard to be a responsible parent and make sure Gumball and Darwin don't do anything crazy, but of course as soon as they leave, Gumball asks Richard if him and Darwin can get naked and go survive outside. And of course Richard just instantly says yes, as he has no idea what responsibility is, as we then get a whole episode of Gumball and Darwin and eventually Richard surviving outside naked, as they all just adapt and accept living outside as their lives get completely and fully taken by these animals. This episode is weird to say the least, and probably the most random plot in probably the entire series if I'm being honest. I didn't really enjoy it, and it's one of my least favorite episodes of the season easily, so with that said, the Survivalist is going in D tier. Season 2, episode 12, the labels. Mr. Small reveals that he's getting fired before Miss Simeon says that Miss Combs is actually behind this, and that she fired all of the executive staff, and hearing this, Gumball and Darwin go to talk to Principal Brown, but are then confronted by Miss Combs, who refers to them as the troublemakers, and then puts a literal label on both of them, Darwin being vulnerable and Gumball being labeled as bad. And of course, Gumball takes this in a different way than what she meant, but Darwin then says that kids shouldn't be labeled by others as it ends up defining them when they're older, as they then go to see the other kids in their school to ask for help, and we see that they've all been labeled as well and are acting like their labels because of it, just believing that that's what they are now because of what an adult told them they are. They end up dealing with this by Gumball just taking everybody's label and becoming super powerful, more or less, just kind of saying that you should be free to be what you want, or be free to be as many things as you want to be, and shouldn't be labeled to just one thing. But Gumball then labels Miss Combs as fired, as she's then sent flying, and the episode ends. This episode conveys such a deep message that some may or may not agree with, and definitely isn't true in all cases, but a lot of kids for sure do get boxed in or forced to be a label because of what someone else said or did to make them believe they are. I think they honestly did the best that they could to touch on a subject like this, honestly, so with that said, the labels is going in B tier. Season 2, episode 13, The Fools. It's April Fool's Day in Elmore, and kind of like during the Cheapmas, Gumball takes the holiday to the farthest level he can, just absolutely pranking everyone despite the fact that they wouldn't find it funny, because nowadays people are extremely serious. And after a huge montage of them pranking everyone in town, him and Darwin end up getting hunted down by everyone, as they even say that they rigged the town with explosives and tell Gumball to press it to prove that he's the prank king. But of course, after Gumball apologizes, they all say April Fools, which was of course to be expected, but it was still pretty funny to see Gumball just actually so utterly shocked by it. Nonetheless, The Fools is going in B tier. Season 2, episode 14, The Homework. Gumball is incredibly sick with the worst flu imaginable and stays home from school, but when Anais asks her big brother to bring her homework to school and he accidentally agrees to doing it, he obviously can't not bring her homework, and so he gets on his bicycle and begins this actual just treacherous journey to get to the school, fighting off an evil goose, passing an incredibly busy road, getting ran over by a kid's car, getting sent flying by a dude's underwear strap, stepping in the cement, getting a bunch of objects stuck to him, crushing him, dragged by a car, and then somehow still dropped right in front of the school though. But now he faces the treacherous obstacle that is the huge hurdle of stairs he has to climb to enter the building, in which climbing we actually get some just sick animated overly expressive visuals portraying his sickness and feelings going up each stair. Yeah, this was just super cool. But anyways, once reaching the top of the stairs, he almost falls right back down, but Anais then grabs him just in time, and the two then share a really cute moment of her asking why he went through all of this trouble to bring her the homework, as he says it was to see her smile. She then says that he could have just emailed it to her and the episode ends, but nonetheless, Gumball's effort to get it to her and the moment they shared, I feel made it more worth it than pointless in the end of things. But nonetheless, the homework is going in B tier. Season 2, episode 15, The Sonder. Gumball and Darwin have to ride the public bus, and Gumball complains saying that it's full of NPCs and that he can't believe he has to be on the bus with them. And so Darwin tells Gumball that he isn't the main character, which is funny, as in this case he literally is. But nonetheless, Darwin tells them that other people have complex lives and that all of these people doing weird things are all doing it for a reason. But the bus then crashes and Gumball crashes into a guy and gets knocked out of his body into what Darwin says is him thinking outside of himself, as Gumball then begins to see everyone in a new light, as we then actually go into a bunch of people's people's lives on the bus, getting pretty interesting backstories for all of them, especially with Sal Letham, who actually only steals because he had his kids stolen from him after being framed for stealing a diamond by another criminal, which was actually just really sad. And it actually makes Gumball realize that looking at life from other people's point of view would therefore make you see them and life in a way more positive way. But then it actually gets revealed that this didn't happen and none of the lives that they went into happened either. But it still tries to make it clear that they are how they are for a reason nonetheless. Even if it isn't the reason that Gumball and Darwin thought, still portraying a pretty good message overall. And so with that said, the Sonder is going in C tier. Season 2, episode 16, The Mister. Idaho tells Gumball and Darwin that he doesn't go to school anymore as he's actually become an adult. And them hearing this are jealous and start listing all the things that you can only do once you become an adult. But then the next day they see Idaho all messed up as he says that he was all alone and that he doesn't think he can make friends as an adult and that he doesn't think that he's ready to be one either. But they then go to see a scary movie, but Gumball and Darwin don't think they can get in, so he has to go in alone, which messes him up. They try to go get him a credit card but end up getting a bunch of them. They go to get a suit but quickly see just how expensive that is to do and also how embarrassing it is for your card to decline. They try to get him a job but get told that nowhere will hire him without experience, but also see that if you have ties to the business, how easy it is, making it also just kind of unfair. They try to get him an apartment but they say that they don't have anything and that any homes that they do have belong to the rich, but nonetheless they sneak into an apartment, but of course then instantly get a million things they need to register for and pay for to be an adult. But when Gumball looks up what to do and sees a bunch of the same questions they're asking, he realizes that all adults are all just kind of kids in adult bodies. They can be stupid, they cannot know the answers or what to do in serious situations in the same ways that kids do. As Gumball then also sings a song about how all of these adults are messes, each in their own ways, whilst we see all of the adults as kids just conveying the message even more. I really enjoyed this episode. It's surprisingly deep for an Idaho episode. It's for sure relatable to most adults and an episode clearly speaking mainly to adults, and overall just way more mature feeling than a lot of the silly and yet still fun episodes. But nonetheless, with that said, The Mister is going in S tier. Season 2, episode 17, The Tracking. Richard and Harold Wilson get in a competition for being the best in shape for a vast amount of money, and since Richard is lazy, they try to fake him being better by having all the other Watersons each wear the tracking device that shows their progress. But Nicole, Gumball, Darwin, and Anais all fail, and so they just decide to try to be so bad at working out that they break the tracker completely. And then when Harold comes to see Richard, they make it seem like now he's just so jacked that he broke the tracker, which should have honestly worked, but Harold looked behind him as we then of course see Darwin and Anais struggling to pull back all of Richard's weight, and then when they let go, the button on Richard's pants fly off and smack Harold, thus making them the winner of the bet for being the best in shape. But then Richard's pants just drop, which caught me so off guard. I don't know why they felt the need to do this, but either way, this episode is going in C tier. Not the best episode, but not the worst episode either, as the next episode is actually probably the worst episode, at least in my opinion. Season 2, episode 18, The Pants. Banana Joe randomly decides that he wants to wear pants, and Gumball is just not having it whatsoever, and so tries to get him to take them off, saying that he's making a fashion statement that will cause a butterfly effect on the other students. And of course it ends up doing exactly this and ends up getting in the way and changing everybody's lives. And so they all have a meeting to figure out just how to get Banana Joe to take them off, as we then see them all come to school naked, which of course makes Banana Joe just feel out of place and the overall need to fit in, causing him to go back to being his pantsless self. This episode was really weird. It was just a really weird way to cover the topic of the butterfly effect. Like, it's kind of funny at moments, but yeah, just not the best plot or story. So with that said, The Pants is going in D tier. Season 2, episode 19, The Necroprancer. As Gumball is fed up with Carrie going into his body when she goes on dates with Darwin, they decide to go to the underworld to find the Necroprancer's tomb to read a spell that would grant any ghost a body of their own. The underworld just being literal hell filled with villains, TV executives, creepy guys, and more. But they then go to the Necroprancer's tomb, fighting off different enemies that get in their way, before arriving and meeting meeting this demon, who then asks them what the most shameful act they ever committed is, and Gumball and Darwin of course tell him the truth, but Carrie then just drops the door on him as they head in. But as they read the spell, Carrie tries to stop them from doing so, and then when they do read it, it doesn't work because Carrie's heart's desire isn't true. But as Gumball and Darwin are about to be killed, Carrie reveals that she likes being a ghost and that's who she is. But of course, hearing this, Darwin is unfazed. He just wants this girl to be happy no matter what, saying that they'll figure something else out as their soulmates. As we then end the episode with the solution they've settled on for now being her going inside of Darwin's body instead of Gumball's, which is at least somewhat better. I really wonder if one day the option they change to will be Darwin becoming a ghost himself. Maybe being an opposite to this episode of instead of Gumball not wanting to put up with it, maybe Darwin won't eventually either, and maybe will want to be his own person while still continuing to, of course, be with Carrie. It would make for a really good final episode for the two's relationship, honestly. But nonetheless, this episode was a big step up in comparison to last season's Darwin and Carrie episode, as people actually hated that episode, or at least the ending of it. So yeah, with that said, the Necroprancer is going in A tier. Season 2, episode 20, The Rewrite. The episode begins with Gumball and Darwin, or more so Gumball, actually just fully acknowledging the fact that their world or just lives are just very weird, kind of breaking the fourth wall and becoming full on meta, realizing that they've been the same age for years, their voices have been replaced, their animation styles have changed, and the fact that Rob was literally turning everyone into real humans. And as Darwin asks what their old nemesis is up to these days, we finally see Rob once again, who is now working for the owner of the Awesome Store, which we actually did see in another episode prior in this season, being the episode The Cheapmas, where we see the owner is actually a pretty nice guy, making what they reveal next honestly hit way more. The Awesome Store driver tells Rob that Gumball and Darwin are about to find the void plot hole that he left when he apparently saved him, as we then actually get to see the exact moment literally directly after the events of the Inquisition, which was actually really cool to see. But as Gumball and Darwin, I guess, acknowledging the plot hole would cause Elmore to fall into the void, Rob and the Awesome Store driver now take fate into their own hands and rewrite the story, showing that the wonderfully rare world of Gumball and possibly all of the Amazing World of Gumball is just a story written by the Awesome Store driver on a script that makes whatever he writes become reality, which is genuinely just insane. I didn't expect him to be that involved to the story's narrative, but he's quite literally the creator. But nonetheless, they then try to stop Gumball and Darwin from making it to school where the plot hole resides through putting a bunch of different nonsensical obstacles in their way that almost instantly make them realize that someone is trying to stop them from finding something. Rob then recalls the moment where they told him that he could be their mortal enemy, as well as the events of the remote, where he said he never wanted to be a villain, but now realizes that he kind of has to be in order to save them. And so once Gumball and Darwin finally do make it to the school, Rob then finally reunites with the two, taking the role of the villain, at least in their eyes, yet again, in which we also just get some of the most amazing animation of the school being cut up and the void just surrounding them with glitches everywhere, as Gumball then jumps in to kill Rob with an axe. This actually felt unreal when watching it for the first time, but nonetheless, we then cut back to the Awesome Store driver, who sees that the script that Rob wrote got a bunch of SMP notes for being too violent and for Rob's demise being too sad. And so what Rob expected to happen here and what he truly thought would happen here was his death. I don't know if killing Rob would have stopped them from finding the void, but that would have actually been the most insane thing to happen in this show ever if Gumball actually did just decapitate Rob with an axe. But nonetheless, Rob then falls into the void once again, and everything goes back to normal for Gumball and Darwin, as they then just laugh it off, which was a little strange to be honest. But nonetheless, we then go back to Rob falling in the void, who's then once again saved by the Awesome Store owner, who then actually retires and gives his job to Rob, saying that they're gonna need someone to protect the people of Elmore when they eventually do get pulled from the air. And as Rob asks what he should do when the void does come back, he says he just needs to press this button, which he then presses and sends Rob away, assumingly back to Elmore, as he then also leaves and retires, ending the season with whatever happens next kind of all up to Rob. So I guess the void serves as this thing that will inevitably come when Gumball ends, and I'm assuming that we'll get to see how that will play out when the series is over, or maybe in the Gumball movie, which of course I do hope we get. I wonder if every time he presses that button it kind of resets things so they can keep having however many seasons they want before the end does come. That would have to be my guess at least. Nonetheless, this episode was truly so good and honestly just blew my expectations of how they would handle the subject of the Void and Rob and the cliffhanger out of the park. I genuinely think that this was the best way they could have possibly handled it. And so with this said, the rewrite is going in S tier. Once again, I gotta say, this season truly was a step up from season 1. Besides the pants and the Survivalists, at least in my opinion, just about every other episode was good, each in their own way. Some, of course, being better than others with the Cheapmas, the synthesis, and the rewrite. But yeah, overall, this season was amazing and easily makes the possibility of us getting more Gumball seasons or even the Gumball movie in the future actually possible. We already got season 3 and 4 greenlit as well, so we really don't even have to worry about it ending anytime soon. But nonetheless, if you want to see more of my content or see me rank other series in the future, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel, and I'll see y'all in the next video, whenever that is.